Hi everybody, welcome to the What's Strategy webinar that Binny and I are putting on today. We are going to have a little bit of a discussion about what strategy is and a couple of penny dropping moments that happened particularly for me in the corporate area, because Bin is kind of inherently a strategy genius, which is, I'm really lucky to have her in the Of Kim family because of that. And then some approaches and questions that we think that you'll find really helpful, and some tools and some tricks and some insights that we can share with you as well. So
yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, so for those of you that haven't been with us before, this might be your first webinar with us. I'm Kylie.
And I'm Binny.
And we've been together working in Of Kim, talking about content marketing and digital strategy and productivity and business wellness together now for 3 years.
Yeah.
And as part of this webinar series, we really want to dig into topics that we know cause pain points for kin like you. They've often caused pain points for us as well. So we love sharing what we know. And so that will be the basis of today.
Yeah.
So prior to working together, Bin and I both had corporate careers. We both managed large budgets and digital teams, and in very fast-paced environments. You can't help but when you're working in digital to just be constantly chasing your tail, because the rate of change is so fast.
Yes.
And we've said it more than once that a year in digital is like a dog year.
Yes.
Like the amount of change.
And the other challenging thing in corporate is that it's very hard to move a really big beast that quickly. So you've often, you need sometimes 9 to 18 months lead time to do anything. So you've got to be constantly sort of rechecking your strategies and looking at what's going on, so you can try and get it done and out there as quickly as you can.
Yeah. So one of the things in corporate land was there would always be an annual kind of strategic review of a business. And so it was part of our role to come and have a look at, what's going to be our strategy for the year ahead, what worked in the previous year, and what are we going to do ahead. And I always got kind of stumped on the, well, what is strategy kind of question. And, in my mind, it was always kind of this big beast of a thing that was complex, that required just, a mountain load of research. It had to be really copious notes of written down documents that would, go whizzing around the organisation. And, having lots of people, review and put input down. There would be, it was all about analysis, and was all about, having a look at what the data said and then making informed decisions about that. I thought that there was like some kind of formula for strategy, that I somehow missed in my uni days or in my previous experience, that, and so I'd be Googling, what is strategy?
I think this is just an off the cuff idea, but I actually think this is the big consultants trying to make us believe that that is the case, so that businesses will continue to hire them. So that if we were all to understand how easy strategy can be when you know what it is that you're asking, and we'll go through that today, they're out of a job.
Yeah.
So, it's a conspiracy.
It is a bit of a conspiracy. Not taking anything away from their skill set.
No.
For us now in our small business, taking our big business kind of experience, it's like, well, how does this now work for us in an organisation that's really agile, where we do have a lot of control, almost to the point where we have so much opportunity and so many choices, and so much free reign that can kind of become paralysing in its own right.
Yeah.
But I had this idea that it was that strategy was really time consuming, that there was really a really political hot potato, and that it was this concrete plan that was locked in. And everything kind of, rode on that. And so it was always like a really heavy kind of, drag yourself, slog through kind of these strategy sessions. And then one day, in my avid amounts of research, wanting to go, why don't I have this kind of strategy thing worked out? I remember reading this, and I remember reading that execution is the strategy. And so it was kind of like, you mean it's just kind of, deciding what we're actually going to do and then doing it? That is the strategy? Like, that's what actually strategy is. It's just executing on ideas that you have and actually making things happen.
Yeah.
And to me, that was my penny dropping moment, because I stopped getting overwhelmed in the intellectualization of what strategy was and thinking that it was something out there that I had to somehow make sense of, to thinking, okay, well, what is it that we're actually going to do, and why is it we're going to do those things? And once I had that kind of epiphany, everything else just made it a little bit easier to think that it doesn't have to be this massive, overwhelming, intimidating kind of idea. So that quote actually came from a guy called Roger Martin, who has written a lot about strategy at Harvard Business Review. And so if you go to hbr.org and you type in strategy, you'll find a lot of articles from this chap. And I think he's got a lot of really interesting insights to say about strategy and really demystifies it and makes it quite accessible. So we're going to tap into a couple of the things that he has to say about it here. But strategy basically isn't about what you say, it's what you do. And so what we work with clients then is working out, well, what is it that we're going to do in your digital marketing strategy or your content approach, or how are you going to be on social media, and coming back as to why you're going to be those particular kinds of things. So to kind of bust the myth, strategy is just choosing what to do or what not to do and then going and doing it. So I think the other thing in corporate days was, once you've kind of done the strategic plan, depending on the culture that you were working in, whether or not that plan actually went anywhere and actually came to life and did anything, or whether it kind of said, right, that's very well, and we're going to shove it in the bottom corner and
which happens a lot.
So if you followed us for a while, we're really big on planning, on making plans. We have our free monthly planning calendar. That's a very, very humble tool, but is kind of it's also an essential strategy tool as well.
Absolutely.
So one of the things that we wanted to then talk to you about was then, well, how do you choose what to do? And, how does that kind of set a course or a direction for your business?
And it sounds, when we bring it back to it's all about choices, it sounds too simple. So I guess part of today is to help you understand how each choice, how you dive into that and expand that out, because in order to make that choice, there are a few things that you need to do to feel confident that that's the choice that you want to make and it's right for your business. Yeah.
And thanks to lovely Roger, who's done that work for us, we do have a couple of questions, because in part of consulting work, getting to the heart of a strategy is actually all about asking poignant questions that will lead you to the right kind of answers that you're looking for. There isn't ever only one right answer, but the questions themselves are important, and we'll get into those in just a minute too. So I think you'll find those really, really helpful, and we'll talk about how we've used them in our business as well. So one of the tenets of strategy is thinking about how you are going to design your way forward in your business. And one of the things that Ben and I have got really passionate about in the last little while is this idea of design thinking. And we know that we have a lot of creatives in the audience, and you guys might do this naturally, but for us, we've done it sort of intuitively, I guess.
Yeah.
But when thinking about your strategy, employing the kind of tenets of design thinking becomes really, really helpful. And so there's a little bit of work out of Stanford University, out of D School, and also some of the work that IDEO have put out there about design thinking. And the tenets of design thinking start with the idea of inventing a future. So when we're thinking about our strategy, we're actually thinking about what is the future going to look like, or what could it look like, or what do we want it to look like. And in doing that, then it's really about immersing ourselves in the lives of the people that we seek to aim. And so that really in itself is a large empathy exercise. It's standing in the shoes of those people that you aim to serve.
So a great example of design thinking back when I used to run Where Is the Mapping site before Google Maps came along, but Google Maps had just started and we were under massive threat. So everyone was saying, right, what's our strategy? What's our strategy? How are we going to compete with Google Maps? So what I did to immerse myself in my customer's life was picked people around the organisation who were all customers because they used online mapping, and asked them to write down everything that they did in the from a Monday through to a Sunday, and asterisks the things that they did that involved maps, and also just I wanted to see what they did in their daily life where perhaps we could feed map use into that, and got back amazing information. And we purposefully picked single people, people in their 20s, people that were married, people that had young kids, old kids, so we could get this immersion into the different things that people did in their lives at different stages, and what content we could then overlay over the Where Is maps. Obviously, it was a really important exercise because we then started overlaying all this content on the map. Sadly, we didn't have the budget nor the money that Google did, but Google's gone on and done exactly what we had identified before they did it. But we wouldn't have known that unless we'd stepped away from the technology and away from the map itself and actually immersed ourselves in the lives of the people using it. And for a lot of people, like, why are you doing that? I don't get it. And it's like, well, unless we have this information, how do we know what they want or what they could potentially use? And that was inventing a future use of our product.
Yes, that's right. But it all comes from having empathy for the people that are going to use it in the end. So, often it's a best case scenario where we're solving our own problem. And, I know through the Leap stories, I see a lot of people who have gone on to do their businesses are actually, solving their own problems because they haven't found anyone out there, doing what they absolutely need to be done, or they've seen an opportunity that will solve this kind of problem for everyone else. So, having that real empathy for the end user and is also where innovation lies, because you don't know what you don't know. You can kind of have a best guess, but empathy is kind of the number one start when you're thinking about, designing your strategy going forward. The second thing that the designers are really big on is prototyping. So they don't tend to kind of have all the answers wrapped up in one solid, fixed idea of a solution. Often you will see designers, and if you've ever engaged a designer, they will present back to you, often a range of options. So they've done a couple of different prototypes before they come back and say, this is the one. So that idea of rapid prototyping to test your ideas so that you don't actually, continue to just push down this one road without necessarily having some checkpoints along the way to know whether you're on the right track. It's kind of like knowing that you're on the right scent. So that idea of rapid prototyping, so testing things, putting it out, seeing what the response is, coming back and tweaking it again. And then, through that prototyping process, then you've got the opportunity to then bring a bigger service or business idea to life. So when we're thinking about strategy, that's kind of the first place that we really start to launch off from.
So a great example of that with the prototyping is the first workshop we did together for Content Key in our digital marketing.
With our 7 lovely people in Sydney
3 years ago.
That's right.
And that was a prototype. We just put something together and go, well, you know what? We don't know whether this is exactly what they want, but let's try it. And we tweaked every workshop we did after that. We tweaked. Yeah. And then that brought us to then developing our big product, was to turn what we then knew was exactly what people wanted into our online course. Yep. So that's a prime example of prototyping, testing, and then leading to investing in something bigger.
Yep, that's right. The good news is for people like us is that strategy is actually more of a creative process over an analytical process. It's not to say that analysing research or data or statistics isn't important, but it's only one part of the picture, and often those consultants that you talk about are the gatekeepers for all of that analysis of that data. But really, strategy is creative because we are thinking about a future that hasn't yet happened. Analysis is what's happened in the past that may help inform things going forward. But strategy is all about forward looking, and that requires imagination. That requires some creative courage to think about, what could be in the future. So I always now I think of strategy as something really to look forward to, because I can get my creative juices flowing, and it's really it's a broadening and opening up kind of idea, rather than having to think about, oh my God, I have to have this rigid fixed plan based on all this data and analysis going forward. Those things, may be the outcome, but it's not necessarily the starting point. Strategy is about opening possibilities. So we're channeling a little bit of Einstein, when we're thinking about strategy. We're thinking that, our imagination is actually more important than the knowledge that we have now, because we can't actually create something that we can't see or that we can't imagine. Yeah. So, and that kind of ties us into our course the first time that we ran it as well.
Yeah.
Because the whole, way that we wanted to run it was also something that we hadn't actually ever experienced ourselves.
Right.
So we wanted to run our workshops in surprising spaces that delighted the senses, and to present information not in a dry, corporate, boring way that we had experienced, but to do it in a way that appreciated the whole needs of a human being.
Yeah.
So, that was exciting for us to actually think about that as well. So back to Roger. And Roger comes back to really thinking about thinking about what territory is it that you want. So where is it that you want to play? He actually has a book called Playing to Win. And in that book, he talks about that developing a compelling strategy starts by staking out the territory you want, and that act in itself is an act of choice. So when we're talking about strategy, what we're really coming down to is choices. And I think we've kind of already alluded to that a little bit. But when you think about strategy as just the choices that I'm going to make in my business, it suddenly just becomes a little more accessible.
And it makes all of you completely capable, in fact, extremely practiced at it, because you make choices every single day of your life. So anyone that thinks that they are not strategic or haven't got their head around this strategy thing, if you can make a choice, then you're a strategist.
Yes, we are all strategists, even in all parts of our lives. So it's figuring out exactly what you want, what you have to do to get where you want to be, and to be able to play the way you need to in order to win. So, and that's what we like to have wins. We like to be able to tick off a few things. So we mentioned that Roger had put together this lovely strategy template for us, the questions of strategy.
And these really resonated with us because reading them, as you mentioned before, intuitively, we kind of followed this without really knowing it in our business. So it was like, oh, tick, 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 and a bit of a pat on the back for us. We've kind of done this without being aware of these particular questions as they're written in front of you right now. Yeah,
so when it comes to actually how we go about, making strategic choices in our business, it was like, well, this is exactly what we do. And this is also permeated in the courses that we run as well, actually. So, and in the consulting that we do. So, so we wanted to share that with you because we thought it was a really fantastic insight. Do you want to run through the questions?
Yeah, so this kind of decorporatizes strategy, and it's the way that we like to talk about things, which is in a more of an excessive human way. So first one is really to look at what is our winning aspiration. So the way that we look at that is when you're defining your why. And we go into that with every client that we meet with, every workshop, every e-course, defining that why and, that aspiration, that reason for doing all of this in the first place is really important, because that is actually your core values that is going to then be behind every decision you make and every choice you make after that. So if you haven't got that defined beautifully at the beginning, it can make a lot of the other decisions really difficult, or it steers you in the wrong or multiple directions where you may have been able to really easily define that down once you've got your why defined. So a lot of you on this webinar have probably done an exercise with us that helps you define your why and work out what your beliefs are. And we've heard so many times of people pulling these things out that they've done with us to help guide them when they need to make big choices in their business, whether it's, you know, to head in a certain direction and take on clients, or to even fire clients that weren't working for them. Or just as a re-energizing, if they're having one of those weeks where they're just like, why am I doing this? I've forgotten what my purpose is, or, you know, you've been a bit frustrated, pulling out this why and these beliefs and your, you know, winning aspiration helps guide you and give you that focus, which is what you need when you're working on pulling your strategy together.
And it can be often one of the hardest things to do.
Very hard.
It sounds so easy in a question like that, but you know, I would say that almost is a bit of a work in progress even for us.
It can take months.
Yeah, which has evolved over time as well. So we don't take that part of the strategy process lightly, but until you actually know what you're playing to win at, and why you want to do that, everything else gets a little bit more tricky. And so creating some clarity around that is one of the things that we do a lot.
Yes.
In our coaching and consulting work.
So the good news is, once you've spent the time and put the effort in to really do some hard thinking around that, usually you won't have to go to that level of thinking again. It's probably a refining and a tweaking each time you review your strategy. But unless you're not happy with where you ended up, then you might have to go through that again. But often once that's defined, it's kind of there with you and you just sort of tweak it along the way. So number 2 is, where will we play? So this is all about, especially in digital, you know, your platforms. What are you going to use? Where do you want to be seen? Where are your customers found? You know, where are you going to locate them? You know, are they blog readers? Do they want emails? Do they want to find me on WhatsApp? Are they on Snapchat? Are they on Instagram? So
are they local? Are they global?
Yeah. So all of that. And so that's, again, you're just making these choices and refining things down so that each step, and these questions are in this order for a particular reason, because as you work down, it makes it a lot easier to answer the question that's after that. So, you know, they are like pieces in a puzzle. So number 3 is how we win. So how we win is very much about what you're going to do. It's kind of like the meat in the sandwich. So this is where you start to look at, well, what kind of content am I going to be producing? What are the themes? Understand my customers, you know, really immerse yourself and know what it is that they want to hear from you, what's going to connect them with you through all of these digital tools and platforms that you're using to try and find them and where they might be looking for you. So it's working out what that recipe is, with an understanding of them and a knowledge of what you've got, and combining them to have that kind of winning formula. And then we've got number 4. So what capabilities must we have? So once you've decided, well, you know, this is what I want to do, this is where I'm going to be playing in my digital strategy, these are the kind of things I want to do. Okay, well, if that's what I want to do, are there any gaps in the organisation? If it's just you, I mean, it could be just you. You'll go, okay, well, I can do all of that, but I might need to get a virtual assistant on to help me with doing this technical part of it, because I know I need to do it, but I don't have those skills and I prefer to pay someone to learn it myself. Or it could be, well, I need a better camera because I know I'm going to be taking heaps more photos and I want to not use stock photography. I'd really rather use my own because I want to have it, you know, feeling the brand that I want to represent. So I need a better camera. I want a video camera. Or it could be tools that you need to use. So it could be apps or software or email platforms that you know, I want to wrap this up a little bit. And we found too, when we were going through at different stages in the business, when we got to this point of capabilities, early on in the business, we would do it all ourselves manually.
And we started with a lot of free tools. So
free tools. Free.
Just start with what we could get our hands on and what we could access. And
so, you know, things like MailChimp gave us an email capability, but we didn't have to pay for that originally. So that was a win for us. Then there were a whole lot of other little free tools that we could put on our website, or, you know, we did all our posting ourselves on Facebook and Instagram. But then, as a year went by, we went, okay, well, let's start using some tools. So we started bringing in Buffer to do some of the posting, and then Kylie started using one of the Instagram apps that helps you sort of pre-plan and load photos in so that they're ready to go and you don't have to do everything at that moment immediately.
And Canva was another example. So using the paid-for version of Canva so that it would do magic resizing, and we could share that within ourselves as a team. So we started to look at what other capabilities do we need or would help, refine some of those things. So we started making some different choices based on, what we knew we needed or what we knew that worked, and then built it forward from that.
And even having a producer that would pull together and coordinate content for some of the blog posts, just to enable that to happen routinely and continue that in the background. And enables also, and that's a really important thing, to say, okay, well, I could do it all myself at this point, especially if you're a small business, but also at this point ask the question, is that the best use of my time? And knowing your strengths here to then say, well, no, I'm better used in this area of the business, therefore I think this is time when the capabilities need to be handed off to someone else, so we bring in something else.
Yeah. Oh my God, we could do a whole webinar just on that.
Next time. And then 5 is what systems are required. And the systems is very much about how you set up the way you're going to go about doing things. So when we're talking digital strategy, if you're sending out emails, what is the system for that? Are you going to do that weekly? Is it going to be monthly? Is it ad hoc and just when you've got something to say, but you want to have it at least once a month? Or with your blog posting, do you write a whole lot in one day and then have them scheduled to post out once a week? Or do you like to have the inspiration of writing it at that moment? It all depends on how things work best for you. So the system of Friday afternoons, do we block that out and pin all of our images to Pinterest that we've loaded on our website and our blog posts? So it's about how are you actually going to create systems to allow you to regularly execute and make this plan actually happen.
Yeah. So we believe that is a fantastic set of questions to ask, no matter where you're at in your business, and particularly at this time of year when we're kind of getting towards the end of 2016 and thinking about the beginning of next year, and potentially going and re-looking at these questions and seeing if they still are true to perhaps what you have been operating, the choices that you've been making this year, or whether you would potentially be looking at repositioning or doing a little bit of different choosing for the new year. So answering those questions gives you a prototype to test. And, both of us coming from a digital background, we're testing all the time. It's almost like we're just a constant state of making some choices, putting some stuff out there, testing, tweaking, learning what happens. Every time we open the course for new enrollments, for example, we do different things and we say, well, how about we try this? How about we try that? And what would it look like if we did this? So, that kind of being able to go, well, we know that works, so let's keep doing that. But what else could we do? Or, what's our next offering, or what other kind of things would we like to be doing? So coming back to that idea of design thinking in terms of building your strategy, answering those questions, putting a prototype out there, seeing what works, tweaking, and there you keep learning so that you can keep making choices going forward. And
there's so many opportunities to get feedback in this digital world. So one of them is that you could email somebody or message them on Facebook that has used your product, because they'd have to message and ask them some questions. Just get the direct feedback. If you don't have the opportunity to actually sit in a store and talk directly to customers, create those opportunities, because I know when in Yellow Pages digital, when I was looking after that area, I would go out on customer calls. The insights I got from sitting with a customer and more seeing their frustrations with the product was what actually triggered for me areas that we needed to develop new products. And that probably the best way to help shape and tweak a prototype is getting that direct customer feedback.
Yeah, and so that brings up kind of another free tool that we haven't even mentioned, which is SurveyMonkey.
Oh, yes.
So you could even do a bit of a customer survey using the free tool that is SurveyMonkey, that asks a few questions, and they could be kind of as simple as, what do you love most? What is, what could we be doing better?
Yeah.
And when I was doing this, when I was head of a digital agency, we were doing a strategic review. We had 3 questions. It was, what should we keep doing? What should we stop doing? And what should we start doing? And looking at those questions was also really helpful. So using that internally or externally, those 3 questions. So, keep, start and stop are really helpful.
Yeah.
So in the words of the great Jim Collins, who I think is a bit of a management genius, he talks about firing bullets before you fire cannonballs. So that means, having your prototypes out there, kind of testing and tweaking, like doing our kind of live workshops, before we then created this big signature online course. Because by the time it came to, creating the course, we already had, hundreds of people that had done our live workshops. So we had that real face-to-face interaction with everyone to know what was really essential, and what really struck the chord of the people of the spaces that we wanted to play in. So fire those bullets first before you fire the cannonballs is one piece of advice that we would totally give you.
Absolutely.
And the other thing that I actually had a call from a freelance digital strategist who had a client who was, a little bit tricky, should we say, and she was asking specific technical questions about linking multiple Facebook pages to Instagram accounts and how that all gets hooked up, and without actually having those devices in front of me and seeing what was linked up and that kind of thing, it was kind of hard to diagnose. And really the biggest piece of advice that I could give her was just to say, stay scrappy. And, that's really hard to say to women, I think, in particular, because we tend to be kind of perfectionists. But scrappy in meaning that stay curious and work stuff out, and that you can work stuff out, and back yourself enough to know that you will work stuff out. When you're talking about strategy, it's not necessarily about having all the answers to those questions up front and locking them in. It's about saying, this is our best guess at this point in time, and this is what we're going to do. And then, once we've got more information, then we can move forward. So staying scrappy means just staying open to the feedback that you're getting, to possibilities, and to not cutting yourself too short in giving yourself credit for working stuff out with clients, or within your own business. So if you're feeling like that perhaps you're kind of overwhelmed with things that look a bit difficult to work out in your business, know that everybody has those struggles when it comes to thinking these things out, and that we all are really just doing the best that we can with what we know at this point in time. And if you do get stuck, phone a friend, like this lovely lady that called me, that we had a really good chat about it. I think that was one of the points that we were talking about just over lunch, was not necessarily doing this in isolation and on your own.
Absolutely. And you won't have all the answers. So don't put the pressure on yourself to think that you need to know what the best decision to do is in your business at that time. And if it's not getting together a group of friends or, whoever it might be, and just go, this is what I'm struggling on. And then they will be standing on the other side of the house that you're looking at the other side and telling you what they see from that perspective, whereas you may not have moved from looking at the back of the house. So that's all you're seeing. So it's really important to get those insights. And if in doubt, just do it, because your customers are going to tell you whether they like it or not. If they click through from your email, you're going to know, if you get a highest click through ever, that what you did, they resonated with. So you are going to get some feedback in that respect. Yes.
And if anybody looks at Marie Forleo, another one of our little icons that we look up to, she says everything is figure-outable. She's totally made that a word. And in our words, what that really means is having the courage to experiment and not to get stuck on the strategy, boundary of thinking that, I have to have this all worked out and it all has to be perfect and it has to be this concrete, analysed, detailed, fixed plan that everyone signed off on in order for it, to have a go.
Yeah. And a prime example of that is, before a lot of people do our digital marketing course, is they say, I haven't started my any of my digital marketing yet because I haven't got my product ready. It's like, Well, you don't need to have that as like the, the starting line that the product's ready. Get in there and start experimenting, because you can learn so much from your potential future customers.
Oh, but I need to have it all perfect and all worked out, and all looking amazing before I actually start. That's one of the kind of crazy things, So when when you're actually particularly in that startup phase, is that you're trying to to really make sure that you've got all your ducks lined up in a row. But the reality is that you want to bring people with you as part of the journey, almost as the startup journey, so that when you actually have something ready to talk about, you've already got an audience to talk to it about.
Yeah.
And you've got some insights that you've developed along the way about what people are resonating with or what they're not. So yeah, so that's one of our things. So in specific relationship to into digital marketing, what are some of the choices that you perhaps need to be making in your business? So did you want to run through these?
Yeah, so we touched on before, it's platforms. So things like if you're going to be on social media, which platforms are going to be the best for the type of business that you are. Now, there are a lot of things to consider in that. It's, what age group or demographic is using each platform, the platform you actually prefer to use, because you actually do get a choice.
Yes.
If you don't like using Twitter, then don't use it.
Yeah.
All of those kind of things. And we always say we give you permission to dump something. You don't need to be across them all. So one of the big choices is about that. If you're going to do webinars like this, we went through that whole, what do we want from a webinar? So that's kind of a strategy. Again, your choice is, do we want webinars where it's just us broadcasting it? Because every platform has different capabilities. So again, your webinar strategy needs to be considered, and what choice you want to do with that, so that it can help you decide on the platform that you're using there. So the platforms is probably one of the first choices, and what you're going to use. And blogging, do I have my blog separately? Is it part of my website? We get those questions all the time, and so it's making the choices there so that then you can move forward. So once you've got the whole, okay, where am I focusing? Then we look at the why, and we touched on that before, but it's the absolute essence of setting up your brand identity. And probably digital, more than anything else, is where your brand identity needs to be really clear. And because it will come through your imagery, through the words that you use, through, you might write text in a certain way, but then you do webinars or podcasts potentially, and you don't sound a thing like the way that you write. So it's really important to sort of have that determined and know what your beliefs are and what your values are and why you're doing what you're doing, so that can come across really clear in everything that you do throughout your digital strategy. Then when we look at customers, so one of the big choices is who you're targeting. And this is where people go, oh, well, I don't want to go niche, because then I'm cutting my market right down. But then if you make the mistake of being all things to all people, then you actually don't connect with anybody. So we spend quite a bit of time with all of our clients, if they haven't already had that whole empathy experience where they've immersed themselves in their customers' lives and identified who they are that they're talking to. And, we had one client we worked with, and we always use this example, where we asked her to do personas for each of her customers, where you write a really detailed description of all aspects of their life. She had pictured herself standing in the kitchen and could visualise the pattern on the tiles in the kitchen. Now,
of that particular persona.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's, true empathy is to really, it was like she was standing in their home watching their life go on around them, to truly understand what it is about them and what she needs to understand about them, so that she can decide what she does with products and how to contact them and find them and market to them and resonate with them and connect with them. So the customers is an essential part of, once you've decided that then feeds back into the platforms as well. Because if you know who you're targeting, you can then go back and go, well, hang on a minute, maybe I need to refine these platforms, because I'm not going to find my customers on these platforms. So it all kind of interlinks into each other.
Yeah, one really good example of that might be, your Instagram versus your Facebook audiences. So, Instagram tends to have a very creative context. It's very visually driven. It tends to be a bit more design conscious. it has a particular kind of person that tends to use it over Facebook, which has a really mass audience, and pretty much everybody is on there. They don't tend to be as picky or choosy with the format of content so much. And they may have different kind of reasons for using it. They may have a different kind of outlook on the world, or a different, kind of different set of priorities or values. So you might say, well, it's not really worth me being on Instagram because my audience that I want to attract aren't on Instagram, but they're on Facebook. So, so then when I'm in Facebook, thinking about my Facebook strategy, and, potentially then do I need to put some bit of money behind it, to kind of get, and that kind of thing. And, and so when I'm in Facebook, maybe a Facebook group would be helpful for me in my business, rather than going off on Twitter or Pinterest or anything like that. So, all of those things kind of play into each other.
And understanding your customer too helps you decide, well, are they the type of person that will respond really well to me sending an email monthly, or are they the type that will want to find me when they need information? So, they'll seek me out, and you can't make those decisions or understand how they behave until you really delve into their lives. So I don't think we can stress enough how important that aspect is to make a lot of decisions and to help you through all of these choices. So then one of the other choices is your theme. So out of the detailed diving that you do into each of your key customer personas, and we usually recommend sort of around 6 or more, you then start to understand where there are common themes of interest that these customers would have, and that shapes the kind of content that you're going to start producing. So then you can start looking at, okay, well, now I can write a blog post about this particular area of interest, because I know that maybe half of my personas would be interested in that. So, and then you can start, developing a strategy around multiple blog posts around that particular topic that you might do over the next 3 months. So this starts then feeding into the planning stage of things. So once you know what your themes are, you can go, okay, well, I need to start looking for or taking photos that are related to these themes. And then you can start planning those out and scheduling them, or writing it in your printed planner that you can download from Kin. And so the themes really play beautifully into the planning side, and when you're going to post, what you're going to post, what day you might post on, when your emails are being written, when you might do a webinar, all of those kind of things feed in together. Then we talk about tools. So tools is what we've touched on before. So what do you actually need to be able to deliver on your digital strategy? So we always recommend, when you're starting out, if there are free tools that meet your needs, which you've determined through working through all of this, then start with those, because if you can save money initially, then as you review your strategy each quarter or half yearly, whatever is your little cycle, you can start to go, well, is it time to upgrade? Which we did, and upgraded from MailChimp to ConvertKit, and found that we needed to segment our market because we had multiple courses and different things and different content items people were downloading as part of our strategy. We wanted to be able to tag people to know what their interests were, and so altered our tool at that point. So this is where you look at and go, okay, well, what do I need right now in my business? What do I actually need in order to deliver on the strategy and the choices that I've made and the platforms that I want to do and the type of content that I want to deliver? And do I need tools, or do I need people, or do I need technology, and make those decisions? And then finally is insights. So we've really touched on the whole monitoring, going to where you can get feedback, have a look at your reports from your emails that you send.
Facebook Insights.
Absolutely.
Instagram Insights are now available if you have an Instagram business account.
Yeah, so you'll usually find that most platforms or technology that you use in digital will provide you with some form of insight.
Google Analytics, see what pages on your website get the most traction, maybe what blog posts have got the most page impressions.
And this is all about the experimenting. So experiment, but don't experiment without then trying to find some feedback or data that can indicate to you, yes, that went well, not sure yet, let's do another one. And then that feeds back into tweaking the strategy and confirming yes or no whether you made the right choice, and then go back and look at the other alternatives you had and choose again.
Yeah. So, all of those decisions that need to be made, those choices need to be made. you are sort of standing at a point in time of doing your best guess when you've got your strategy going, because you're actually thinking about, okay, this is where we are at this point in time. These are this is my idea about what we need going forward. So lovely, Brian. Double M on the Brian. Alexandros kind of summed it up really nicely, I think, when he said that strategic thinking is an inherent act of creative inquiry. If you're trying to chart a new way forward, it's going to take seeing things at a new angle. And so, being able to have people that you can either tap into or do some of your customer research, have those conversations, stepping into the shoes of your clients to have that empathy will give you that new angle as well.
One of the things, I'm a true believer that even if I sit down and say to myself, okay, I want to pull together a strategy, and I have a separate business to this that I do with Kylie, and I can put the time in my diary, I can light a candle, I can have it all quiet, the kids aren't there, but I find it really hard on my own to trigger this whole imagination, ideation, expanding my mind. It's something that I need either to watch something that triggers a different way of thinking, or to have Kylie go, hey, have you thought about this? Mm. Or it's something that I truly believe.
Or a deadline.
Yeah, deadlines can do it sometimes, but it's really hard to trigger it yourself.
Yeah.
And that's just something I found, and I don't know, but I'd love to see some comments from people if you find that it's the same as well. But you can have all the intentions in the world, but sometimes you just can't see your business or what you're working on any other way than the way that you've been seeing.
Yeah, because sometimes you can get into that overthinking thing. Then, the overthinking is kind of why we have the next slide, which is all about a bias for action. Actually committing to doing something. So if you remember right back at the very beginning of this webinar, we talked about that strategy was the process of choices about what to do or what not to do, and then actually doing it. That's what is actually a strategy. So having a bias for action, actually putting forward, and whether or not it's a deadline or it's an accountability buddy,
yes,
also really helps. And that's what you and I are for each other as well. And having that plan of going, well, this is what we're going to do, and this is how, this is why we're doing it, and this is when we're going to do it. So, strategic people always have a bias for action. It's actually about doing it rather than just talking about it.
Yeah.
So one other little gem that we thought we would share with you, which was released a few months ago, a little bit earlier this year by a chap, so specifically around the content strategy area, is this idea of a content strategy canvas. So those choices that Binny just ran through, with all the choices about making decisions in your strategy for your content marketing, can kind of be summed up in this canvas, where you're talking about, who is our audience, what is an audit of the kind of content or information that we already have, what does our brand stand for, what's the production looking like, and what kind of formats are we going to do, what's our workflow, what's the distribution points, and so forth. So this is you can actually have a look, you can look this up and download it for free, and and take some time to kind of work it out. That's so that's kind of another view of what a strategy can look like. It doesn't have to, one of my pain points at the beginning that I mentioned was that it was like this long convoluted document of pages and pages and pages and pages. It doesn't actually have to be that. It can actually be as simple as having a template and filling out those templates as you go, after being prompted with some questions, after having some discussions with people who are concerned about what you're doing, and taking it forward from them. So we just wanted to share that with you.
Yeah, but if you still find that it's a bit of a struggle, and some people just need that trigger of working with others, or other people's ideas, or to listen to something. I know the other day I had to go off and listen to a TED talk to get my mind going and to get things stimulated. And often that is what you need. What we've actually done through our online course is to show you how to do all this. So for each of these areas, this is where we then hold your hand and show you, well, this is how we can help you define this and work you through all of those areas there.
Yeah, because that's one of the things, isn't it? It's kind of, it's one thing to know what you need to do and why you need to do it, but actually knowing how to do it. And that was, like I said, that's where I got stuck actually when it came to working out strategy for my business, you know, that I was working for at the time, because, you know, I didn't actually know how to go about doing it. And once I'd sort of cracked that, then everything kind of came together. So, you know, when we were putting together the Content Kin course at the beginning, when we were putting together our workshops, we were like, well, you know, what are the things that we think are really valuable, that have made a real difference to us, that we wish we had known about when we were working on the strategies for the businesses, and, you know, and what did we fight tooth and nail to learn on the job as we went. And actually, how could we make that a hell of a lot easier for a whole bunch of other people like us to know, you know, how to actually do this, because you know, we spent a lot of time actually figuring it out on our own, and a lot of research. And, you know, when we combined our forces, we went, there's a much easier way of getting to the bottom of all of this and communicating this in this rapidly changing environment. You know, what are the core essential things that, you know, that despite all the whole bunch of noise that's going on in the digital marketing space, what are the core essential things that kind of, no matter what happens, these principles are the things that you need to know.
And I think that's the key, is knowing when to stop, because you can spend forever going, oh, I don't think I've quite got enough, or I don't think I've researched enough. So we kind of show you how much you need in order to have that piece sorted, to then move on to the next, so that you can keep adding them together.
Yeah. So as in our Content King course, you know, some of the things that we know that inform our strategy and our choices going forward is the feedback that we get from our participants. So if you're in a position where you can actually ask for testimonials, or whether you can do a survey or an exit interview or something like that, you know, or a client satisfaction kind of feedback form or card in an order or something like that you can get, it's really helpful, because, you know, then you kind of know whether or not the choices that you're making are the right ones for the people that you're aiming to serve. So Lena, for example, she said that the biggest impact from doing the Content King course was the confidence to believe that she was on the right track. And that was one of the things that we really wanted to make sure that when we put the course together, that people felt confident, because it's very easy to get bamboozled in this space. And we wanted to give people the kind of chutzpah to know that you can work it out, and that there are people like us that are on your side to help you actually get through this, and you don't have to do it alone. And then one of the other things was, you know, getting her content calendar together so that she felt that she had a plan and a way forward. So all of those choices that she made about the themes and the people that she was talking to came together in a consolidated plan that she could then execute and go forward. And so that's also another confidence building kind of activity that we wanted to make sure that was in the course, that it was very action orientated, and that there was a lot of outcomes in the course. It wasn't just like you know, here's how to go about doing it. This is like how to go about doing it and now actually do it. You know, this is what you need to do to implement and go forth. You know, here is everything that you need to do it. Here's a template through the questions, and here's our advice, and here is peer feedback as well, and your accountability buddy to keep you on track as well. So, you know, that's one thing that we've seen in the strategy of the choices that we've made in how we've put the course together, that, you know, we can see clearly from the feedback that we get from our customers. Yeah.
And one of the things in the course, because we wanted them to come out with a strategy, is we needed to make sure that they were making choices along the way. So what we made sure was that we structured it so that each packet that they did enable them to make a choice that informed their strategy. So it was things like, you know, choosing the suitable platforms for their business, clarifying what their business why was. There's a whole section on actually working through that and getting that done so that you can use that
to then inform all of your other choices. It's the most strategy. And we know from the comments that we get from that, that's one of the most valuable pieces that people do.
And it's not really business orientated, really.
Well, it's so powerful. It really overflows into your life about why you do what you do, just in general as a whole. It's a really powerful piece.
So that also then feeds into defining your brand values, and then, you know, as we talked about, you'll actually choose who your ideal buyer personas are. So you'll work out who those people are and have that empathy with them and really immerse yourselves in their lives to help you make your future choices. Then you'll also decide on what your actual business persona is, so that can come through in all of your digital marketing. That personality is consistent along the way. Then once you've done all of these previous choices, you can then identify what your unique content themes are. So these are themes that you know, because you've immersed yourself in your customers' lives, that are going to connect with them. It's probably the hardest thing that people identify in digital marketing is which content do I post that is actually going to resonate with the people that I want to talk to and connect with. And so all of the choices up until that point lead to being able to actually pinpoint what that is. And it's probably a little bit of a process that was quite unique to what we pulled together, because we were trying to help them make these choices.
And the pennies that drop when they go through it, it's amazing. Great.
So then as they're working through the strategy in the course, that then comes to the whole content ideas. So you'll then start to choose, okay, well, these are the kind of content ideas for my blog posts, for my podcast, for my webinar, for Instagram that might be different to Facebook. So all these choices are made, but they're confident choices. Like the testimonial said before, I felt confident to know that I was on the right track and I knew what I was doing, because you've made all these previous choices before to inform that and to make you feel really comfortable with the people that you're talking to. And then after the content ideas, it's very much about your marketing content and editorial plan, and that is to then execute. So we talked about our planner, that you walk away with that all planned out, because you're able to make choices really easily at this point, and you can fill that planner out and then know that all you do is follow that plan and execute on it, and you're delivering on your strategy, which is really exciting when you get to that point. You look at it and go, oh, wow, I've got my whole 3 months planned out, you know, across all areas of what you're doing in digital. And then we'll obviously look at that point, the productivity hacks that you can use. So once you know where you're aiming your digital efforts, you know which hacks are going to be useful for you to save time, because we won't deny it, it's time consuming.
Absolutely.
So you want to look at different ways and choices that you can make to enable you to continue to execute on it, that it's not something you're really excited about for a couple of weeks and then it just becomes overwhelming and too time consuming. So there's a lot of little hacks that you can choose to do to keep that execution up, to keep the flow, to keep the continuity. And then something dear to Kylie's heart is also choosing the best way for you to shoot your own photos. Is it on your phone? Is it on a digital camera that you then convert across? So it depends on what you're doing it for, but we'll guide you on how to shoot them, create photos, you know, source photos, edit them all so that it works best for the strategy that you've decided upon at this point. And then in order to know whether your strategy is working, is that choice of what's the best way for you to measure your success, and what are you going to monitor to make sure that you're on the right track and to steer you there.
Yeah, and one of our gorgeous alumni, Kylie from May Lane, she's a huge advocate of just sticking with it and keep going. Like, she's just tried and kept on going, and you know, she's had fantastic Instagram growth on her account over the last few years, and has really just kept going for it, and with the support of with us and the community behind it, you know, she's managed to just kind of stick to her game, keep, you know, prototyping and putting things out there, and she's made some fantastic inroads with getting fantastic exposure of her business in a whole range of places and collaborations and brand partnerships that she now has.
But a prime example of someone that just takes action and continues to execute and just pushes through and learns from it, and was guided by, making the kind of choices that she needed to make through doing the Content Kin course.
Yeah. Another one of our lovely kin is Jade from Little Paper Lane. And I don't know if anyone follows her on Instagram, but she is one of the biggest personalities that you will find on Instagram. She is wholeheartedly herself when it comes to her voice and what she believes in, and putting her work out there. And she did our course earlier this year, and even though she already had nearly 40,000 followers on Instagram and has a really significant following on Facebook, she still got a whole lot out of the course. Because what we were able to do with her is prompt her to think in ways that she actually hadn't before. So even though she kind of knew what was going on in her business and what worked, she didn't necessarily understand completely why. And she was now extending her services to going and managing other social accounts. So we gave her a really great framework to then be able to go and apply this to her other businesses. And she loved it. She absolutely lapped up the course.
And it pays to have somebody trigger you to think differently for a fresh approach, because it's like you've been looking one direction, you turn around and go, oh, there was an ocean behind me. I didn't even know. Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. So, because often when you're doing the do, you kind of don't have a chance to kind of come up for a breath of fresh air and just go, okay, so, how what's actually going on here?
Yeah.
So in the course, we have really made sure that it's accessible to anybody who is really keen and interested in this, and can get going straight away. So there are 6 learning packets, and because we all learn, a little bit differently, we have kind of like a multimedia, that's very 1990s, a multimedia approach to our learning packets. So there are case studies that you can read. We have video recordings. We have slideshows as well. We have downloads. And templates to fill out as well. So we actually are very action orientated through the course, in that as you progress through each of the learning packets, you're building on your strategy. One of the things that we really love is we also do live webinars with people who are enrolled in the course at the time. So we give people the opportunity to come in and have a chat with us about the things that they've tried and tested, perhaps what they still need some clarity around, or just go, what do you reckon about I do this, or that kind of thing. So we actually build in some live webinars as well.
And that was based on us listening to feedback, that we changed it and included the 2 live webinars. We hadn't done that with our original courses launched a year ago.
Yeah. So we've continued to evolve the course as well. We have, and in response to that, we've also built in bonuses as we've gone as well. So we've now got a whole raft of bonuses. So if you specifically want to know something about PR and getting out into PR, then you can jump into that bonus as well. It's not necessarily something that is as a requirement of the 6 learning packets, but we know that for people that that are interested in that, there's a resource that includes a sample press release and how to actually make contact in the media. And the email marketing was another one.
Yeah, very popular.
Was specifically, so we built that up and packaged that into the course as well for people who want to take that next step, because you also have lifetime access. So you might nail the 6 packets and then want to come back and start digging into those other things later. So we continue to build into those things as well. And the other thing that we know that our people love is access to our Facebook group. In fact, one of the people that did the course recommended it to somebody else and said, look, the course is fantastic, but the community is awesome as well. Like,
the value in that is way bigger than we actually place on it.
The value of actually being part of that community, be able to go there and ask questions. We're sharing really helpful, useful, timely content there all the time. And so, we have this ongoing relationship with you as well. And also the ability to partner with an accountability buddy, because that's one of the things that we've talked about in putting our strategy together is, having somebody to pressure test stuff off and report back into, and that kind of thing becomes really important. So you have the option to pair with an accountability buddy if that's something that you would really like to do as well.
And one of the hardest things working through a strategy is you might be all gung-ho at the beginning, and then life and work gets in the way. So we want you to get to the end. So with the live webinars at 2 points throughout the course are strategically placed there, so that there's one at the beginning to try and get you to start a few packets and get in there, and then one towards the end, so it will prompt you to keep moving through that. So you'll actually work through the strategy and not have pushing it down your priority list to get in there and do it.
Yeah. So each of the packets is designed to answer one of those of Roger's questions.
Oh, yes, Roger's come back again.
I love Roger. So the first packet, which is all about content being the new black, and it's all about looking at the market, at the online market space at the moment, looking at some statistics, looking at the platforms, understanding what content marketing is and why it's important. Really answers that question of where would we play, in one of those 5 questions that Roger talked about.
So packet 2, the harder matters, this absolutely focuses on your why. It's all about your brand values, what your beliefs are, and this is answers that question of what is our winning aspiration.
Packet 3 is all about diving into those content themes that we've talked about and understanding what it is that your audience want to hear from you about, and that's really answers the question, how will we win, in the strategy.
Yeah. Plan the work the plan. Packet 4 is very much about what systems are required. This is where you will actually walk away and develop a plan that we hope looks very much like that on the screen. Using
although that may or not look like that. It was actually for a very large company that serviced both the southern and northern hemispheres. Yes. Had been going for quite a long time.
Yeah,
so
that's way too detailed.
Yeah, but yours won't necessarily look like that.
But what we're hoping is you will have a 3-month plan with things written in for each day as to when you might be launching a blog post, or what, ideas for what you might post about that are timely to do with things that might be happening in the world on that date or that day. So it's very much about this is what you'll be executing on.
Yeah, and depending on the size of your team, who might be responsible for doing what as well. Your name might be next to everything, like it often is with us. But if you're also managing a team, or just a couple of other people, or a VA, then it helps actually work out who's going to do what and where.
So packet 5, doing the do, is very much about what capabilities must we have. So in order to execute, do we need more people? Do we need software? Do I need to learn how to edit photos? Do I need to, research hashtags? What are the things that are missing, or that we might need, or to tweak or improve in order to ensure that we can execute properly?
And then the final packet is kind of like a strategic wrap-up, really. It's sort of checking in with all of those decisions and choices that you've made, and having a look at some of that analysis that we touched on to feed back into your next round of choices going forward, and whether or not you want to stick with them, or whether or not there are things that you want to change, do more of, do less of, keep doing, that kind of thing. So the course is really wrapped up, to really help you develop your strategy, but then action on it and actually put stuff into place. And as we said, we've also got a whole bunch of other additional bonuses that are helpful. So if you wanted to run competitions to help grow your audience, which is a really effective way to do that, we can give you some guidelines around what to do about that, how to collaborate, which in these days of social influencers and trying to navigate your way around algorithms is also a really good strategy. If LinkedIn is one of the things that is really important for you, then making sure that you have a really good, strong profile on how to go about doing that. We have a whole webinar with a LinkedIn expert for you as well. Building your email list and then email marketing are all there for you as well. And our Facebook group. So we told you already about our Facebook group.
So that's only for people that have done any work with us before.
Yes. Yeah. So it is a private Facebook group. It's only for people that are enrolled in our programs that actually access that. And we do offer a money-back guarantee. So if you are interested in doing the course, you can be rest assured that we totally 100% stand by our methodology and all of the activities and the strategies that we actually have in there and the choices that we've made. We know that it's tried and tested. And so if you were considering doing the course, just know that you have a 100% money back guarantee in place if you're wanting to kind of mitigate any risk. Not that we've ever had to worry about that, but and our webinar bonuses that we talked about.
So we've got a special offer for those of you that know that you would love us to hold your hand. You want a bit of help with the how, support of the other kin, the 2 live webinars and all that good stuff that's going on to really nail the strategy for you, and lifetime access so you can pop in and out to guide yourself as you're tweaking your strategy. We'd love to offer anyone that wants to sign up within the next 24 hours and enroll in the course a 10% discount, which will be, it's nearly $50 off. So if you just use and write this down, the code is choose now capitals all one word, and head over to ofkin.com, and underneath courses there. And if you enter that in, we'd love to welcome you with that 10% discount for joining us today on the webinar.
Yes, and as a reward for hanging around to the very, very end of everything that we've been talking about today. So we just wanted to make sure that we have addressed all your questions. So if you are still here and have some questions, we have seen that there's some questions happening on the live chat. So feel free to go over to chat now, because we are all about acting over than planning. So
Q&A?
Yes. So
go to Q&A.
Oh, sorry, go to Q&A, not chat. We don't want to have you on chat. We want you to go over to Q&A so we can actually see your questions. So strategy is all about acting over just doing the planning. So hop on over to there so we can see. I think we've got a few more. We have got a few questions. So Lindy has asked, what should my strategy be given there's a saturation in my market? I choose to do it because I love it, I'm good at it, and I believe in it. Well, I don't know that there's any other strategy other than that, to be completely honest.
And you can say that there's a saturation in your market, but if you communicate to people how much you love it and that you do it for that reason, then people can choose to use you rather than somebody else, or choose your product or service over theirs. So all you're doing is helping them make a better choice to come to you. So it's all about, that if that's your strategy, if you believe there's a saturation in the market, then let that be your strategy. Why are you different to everybody else?
Yeah, because, the whole saturation in the market thing also is a bit of a mentality thing about, whether there's scarcity or abundance.
Yes.
And sometimes when you see a saturation in your market, there's opportunity to just make the market bigger. It doesn't mean that there's necessarily a limited size of that market. It means that the market itself can actually grow because there might be a lot of demand for that. But one of the things I would absolutely say is that you're not going to be for everybody who needs what you have. So don't think that you need to appeal to everybody who needs what you have. That's kind of a bit of a rookie mistake when we try to be everything to all people who need what we have. And we're huge fans of Simon Sinek, and we talk about Simon's work in the course. And basically your job is to appeal to those people who believe the same things that you believe. And so your job is to really then just keep putting out there who you are, like Ben said, your unique approach, what sets you apart, what drives your passion, and then you will actually attract people who value those things. But just don't try and be all things to all people. Is what I would say.
Now, Lindy also asked, how do you target customers on WhatsApp? So WhatsApp could be used like a private Facebook group. So an example of that is where I just went to Sydney and did a coaching course for a week, and there were 20 participants in the group, and the facilitator set up a WhatsApp group and invited us all so we can continue conversation and chatting to each other once we've left that training. And it's been great for that. It's like Messenger on your phone, so it can be used in that way.
Lindy has also asked, should you entice customers with an offer or reward to do the survey? I guess it really depends on how easy it is to implement that. I mean, if you're an online business that you can offer them free shipping or a percentage off or something like that, it makes it fairly easy to do that. Yeah, sure, why not?
I think if it's going to be a really long survey and you're worried that they may drop out halfway through, if there's an incentive, that might keep them going to the end. But if it's a very quick survey that's easy to do, then it's not absolutely necessary. But if you're capable of doing it and want to, it's not going to hurt.
Prototype it, Lindy. Create the survey, send half out with an incentive, send half out without an incentive, and see what works. That's what I would probably say. You're not going to know until you actually give it a go, until you try it. Is it a mistake to identify your customers as yourself and or your friends? I don't think so necessarily. I don't think you should limit your customer personas to only those people. So as I mentioned, one of the things I find in the leap stories all the time is that, the people start businesses because they're solving their own problems. So they are, in a sense, their very first customer. So I don't think that that's wrong. And especially when you have started a business, you have started it because you can see a need in the marketplace, and there are going to be other people like you that have that need, but that's not going to be the only kind of person that needs it. So I don't think that's the case. And in the course, we actually do talk about the fact that when you're doing customer personas, we know that in lots of other courses, people talk about developing your one customer avatar. You know, controversially or not, we think that perhaps there's more than one customer. Like if we think about everybody who's sitting on this course today, we probably think that there's going to be, from the customer persona work that we've done, there's going to be probably about eight different kinds of kind of customers that are sitting in the audience today that are going to be interested in what we have to do. So you're not going to be necessarily the same kind of customer that we would have perhaps doing some of our other courses or engaging with us in a different way. Sarah, off topic, who was the coaching course that you completed with?
I actually did the Gallup Clifton Strengths Finder, so it was strengths coaching for individuals, managers and teams. Amazing, by the way.
Yes, so good. Yes, we got that, was for Binny. Sarah also asked, I have trouble coming up with personas. I just think of people like me and can't imagine someone other than me. Well, I mean, that's potentially, you know, one of the things that we do when we go into businesses, we ask them kind of what data set do they have actually on their clients. So do they have a database of, you know, where they live by postcode, or their ages, or gender splits, or the kinds of things that they're buying, or
Facebook page is good. Remember, you did a bit of legal stalking. You can tell the story about one of your clients.
Yeah, well, one of the clients that we did a big strategy piece work with was, oh no, that's right. Yeah, it was the other one. Was they had quite a good following on Facebook, and I didn't have access to the statistics in the back end. So before I went and met with them, I went and had a look at who was responding to their posts on Facebook, who was liking them or commenting them. And if those profiles were open, so they weren't locked down private ones, I just went and had a look, you know. And so it was actually in the equine industry, and they were selling products for horse riding. And so I could see that there was, junior horse riders, so teenage girls who were really into their pony club. There was the mothers of those teenage girls who were actually buying all the bits and pieces. There were professional riders, and I found that out just by going on and actually having a look at the kind of people that that were engaging on their Facebook page. But you know, you could actually do a bit of a survey where you ask different questions. We saw this fantastic example actually on one of our clients on Instagram. I just remembered she on Instagram, she actually said, I'm doing this course, and one of the things I need to do is to find out who you all are that follow me. Can you give me, you know, a few paragraphs, or, you know, a few notes about who you are, where you live, what you love, and why you follow me. So,
yeah,
you know, it was fantastic. She just went to her crowd and just said, hey, who are you guys? Yes. So that might be perhaps a little bit of a way to help to do that as well. Great, so try those out, Sarah. So does anybody else have any questions? Speak now or forever hold your peace. No, that's not true. We are always here, and we're very friendly, so we love lots of different questions.
And anyone that's interested in doing the course, if you have any other questions, then feel free to email us. You will get a recording of this sent out soon. So if you've got questions about the course, you know, hit reply on the email if you just need to clarify a few things before you sign up and enroll, and make sure that you get in if you're wanting to do it, to make the most of that 10% discount. So some people are in there starting already. So dive in and jump on board and get in a part of the discussions and help each other out along the way.
And enrolments actually close on Friday. We should have said that. So enrolments actually close for summer school this Friday. So you've got an incentive to sign up in the next 24 hours.
Yeah.
We are looking at sort of closing off this summer school enrolment with all these additional bonuses in it by Friday.
Yeah.
So action, a bias for action. Our strategy loving people. Yeah. Always remember to choose courage over comfort. So if you're kind of feeling like, you know, I kind of want to do it, but I'm not sure, you know, think about choosing courage. That's one of the kind of things that we always talk about, taking risks, because nothing can substitute experience. And we've taken out some of the risks, in having a full money back guarantee. And just remember that there is no necessarily perfect time to actually do this kind of stuff, and actually just getting in and making it happen is how we make progress moving forward in the strategies of our businesses and our lives. So we would really love to see you in the course. Thank you so much for hanging around and joining us this afternoon and sticking with us. And we would love to hopefully continue this conversation going forward.
Yeah. Beautiful. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Have a fantastic rest of the afternoon, and we'll talk to you again soon. Bye.
Bye.